here's Brody Brazil.
Before anything else, let's give credit where it's due to Alan Snell of lvsportsbiz.com, friend of the channel, by the way. As far as I can tell, he was the very first to report that on Monday at 2 p.m. Pacific time in Las Vegas, the A's are going to hold some sort of press conference to unveil their newest round of renderings for a Las Vegas ballpark project. Now, on one hand, this is to be expected. Actually, it's a little bit overdue. The A's initially said by the end of October this would be ready, then at some point in November, but ultimately it's going to happen here in December. Oh, but that also brings another interesting aspect of timing. Monday is the very first day of baseball's winter meetings in Nashville, Tennessee, where literally anybody and everybody connected to Major League Baseball is going to be gathered. I mean, even people like myself will be in Nashville for this conference/meetings. And so to hold a press conference simultaneously on day one in Las Vegas, thousands of miles away, it's interesting timing. And you can probably read a number of different things into that, but I just want to set the perspective here. The timing is not by any accident at all. In fact, quite the opposite. You'd have to think it's very strategic of when this is being announced, where everybody will be, and trying to make a splash with these renderings. But in this video, I'm going to give you 5 things to watch out for when these renderings do ultimately come out. I've yet to see them, yet to understand them, but here are 5 things that I will specifically be looking for. First and most importantly, is the new stadium design actually proportionate to the 9 acres that it's supposed to sit on? Previous renderings, like the ones that came out in May, last minute to appease the legislative session, there's no exact measurement, but if you really start to go deep into that image, the ballpark takes up something like 18 to 20 acres. The entire site is 35. The A's have been allotted a firm 9 acres. There's been lots of talk about wiggle room here and there, but as far as we know, in the very latest comments that have been made, 9 acres is the drip line of this stadium, the absolute perimeter of this ballpark. So will the true size, when these renderings come out, will it be minimized or will it be entirely reflected? Will people look at this and say, whoa, that's a lot smaller than the old renderings, or this actually doesn't take up a big portion of the site? 9 of 35, yeah, basically a quarter of the site. So will it actually be properly reflected? Will the stadium be proportionate to scale? That was a huge criticism of the prior renderings, and I just think that if it comes out that way, a lot of people are going to have a totally different grasp of what this actually is going to be. But will it be minimized or actually reflected? That's probably the biggest takeaway. Okay, what's on the rest of the Tropicana site? What else is going to be depicted in these renderings? Now, I'm not here to say that Bally's or GLPI, who are in charge of the site and in charge of the Tropicana and what comes next, I don't even know if they know exactly what they'll be doing. But I can guarantee you that hotel and casino spaces are going to happen on the rest of this site. And this is an image that got passed along during the summertime. Somebody photoshopped office buildings or condo buildings, but to make the point that the rest of this property is going to be developed. The north and western edges and corridors of the project are going to be developed, probably with high-rise towers or some type of other buildings that loom over the stadium. So will the rest of the site actually be depicted, or will it just show the stadium on 9 acres and blank space all around it? Because that's obviously not actually what it's going to be. It also makes you wonder, what is the ultimate coordination between Bally's architects and future property architects and what the stadium is doing? Because there has to be some collaboration there. You can't have 30,000 or 33,000 people going in and out of this site without actually planning, like, what's on the rest of it? What is their access in and out, and what's going to impede on one part or another? Let alone hangover space of a retractable roof or anything else that needs to be addressed or coordinated. It will be interesting to see what else is part of these renderings, because it's not just going to be the ballpark, or at least it shouldn't be. Here's another thing to keep an eye on. Number 3, does the roof actually open and close? Is it depicted as a retractable roof or a fixed dome ballpark? As time goes on, you start to realize the cost and the inflation and the escalation of what this is actually going to total out to be. $1.5 billion is the initial estimate. We know how that goes. You can almost instantly tack on 10%. Maybe it's more like 20 or 30%. But a retractable roof structure alone, experts will tell you, could add $500 million to the project. Or $500 million could be removed from the project, or at least a majority of it could be taken away if all of a sudden what was promised as a retractable roof stadium is now just a fixed dome. My point is, will they move forward with a retractable roof? Or like a lot of people are considering right now, and what's being maybe even suggested and hinted subtly, is that maybe this stadium is not a retractable roof. Maybe it's a straight up dome. The A's have already commented about the budget. Their designers have said that they want to create a, quote, wow factor within the budget. There's a reason why the designers and architects have kind of been chosen later in the process, because they want to fix the price and the cost at a certain point and then design around that instead of the other way around. But is there a retractable roof or not? And what's the ultimate difference? Does it affect the project from happening? Yes or no? Well, certainly, like I said, it wasn't the promise. Also, it's a huge difference in cost if they're going to cut this out in the early phases. And obviously, too, the view you would get of maybe New York, or maybe the MGM, or maybe just the back of the new Tropicana hotel totally changes with a roof that opens and closes or not. Okay, do these new renderings, do they actually show that, quote, 75% concept design? It's something the A's came forward with, that what you'll see next is actually a more accurate depiction of what they're planning to build. There were so many things in the initial renderings that you could just look closely and see that that's not right. I mean, for example, in this depiction, look how wide those sections are in the, third or fourth upper deck. There's like 100 seats across in any row. How are you supposed to get to the middle there? So big details, small details. Are we actually going to see something that looks tangible, something that can give you a level of accuracy for the detail of construction and the cost of construction and the buildability of construction? Because my point is here, you can design up the most elaborate things possible. And that's great, but is it going to fit within your timeline? Is it going to fit within your budget? Is this a reality, or is this just another round of appeasing people, wishful thinking to keep the wheels moving forward? And you also want to come up with this 75% concept design if you're the A side of things, because at some point, you need to move forward with this. You need to break ground. You need to have blueprints. I would imagine blueprints are something that, a financial institution that's going to offer a loan, I would imagine they need to see these things. They need to see more than just these renderings, the old ones certainly, but even more than the new renderings. They need to see what's actually going to be built, how it's going to be done, before they'll move forward as well, too. So what we're about to see, and I know none of us, well, I shouldn't say that, most of us are not designers or architects, but will it be clear that what's being depicted here is, in fact, that 75% concept design, like 75% of the way there? Or is it going to be another 25 or 50% concept? I guess we're bound to find out. And then the last thing here is, what is the geometry of this stadium? Now, this hasn't been talked about a lot, but quite honestly, it holds the keys to success for this project moving forward, because there is the promise of bringing in, 2.4 million visitors to this venue annually. And if you do the math, baseball alone, you need to sell out basically every single game, every single season for 30 straight years to get to the number where you pay off the bonds in Clark County. There's not a lot of wiggle room on that. So you need to host much more than just baseball events. Problem is, the typical baseball field, and this one, from the original renderings, is that the shape of the Coliseum? All that foul territory? You don't have space for that, first off. But what is the geometry? What is the shape of the stadium? What is the shape of the playing surface? It needs to be a shape that obviously is suitable for baseball. But it also kind of needs to be a shape that's beneficial for concerts and events and other functions, because you do not want to have a true hardcore baseball-only facility that's terrible for everything else. You need to draw everything else. I hate to say this, but the A's almost would need to have another multi-purpose venue in Las Vegas for it to be successful. Right? That's been the criticism for so long of the Coliseum. It was once more baseball friendly, then it became baseball and hardcore football again when Mount Davis was built in the mid-90s. I mean, here we go, down that same road where the A's are almost forced, because they need people to come there, to build a ballpark that suits more than just baseball. And that might also impact the playing surface. Like, if you do a straight-up dome without a retractable roof, I'm not sure the technology or how they could allow grass to grow. And I do realize there are unique situations across sports where they grow grass or they have a field that moves out and replaces itself. You can't really do that with baseball either, because it's not a square surface or a rectangular surface like at Allegiant Stadium. Your options are limited here in a lot of different ways because of the geometry. And so what is the shape of this thing? It's just something to keep an eye on. That's going to be a telling figure and fact of this stadium once it all comes out. So again, the release of renderings. People have waited a while. This is coming out later than expected. Oh, but it's coming out at a very specific time. 2 p.m. Pacific. At that moment in Nashville, I'm sure people will be busy talking about Shohei Ohtani and trades and this and that. But obviously the A's are trying to send a transcontinental message here by holding their press conference in Las Vegas at the very same time. And we also understand that owner John Fisher is going to make an appearance. I don't know whether it's going to be a press conference situation, a statement situation, how that's going to go, but it'll be the first time, I believe, he makes a public appearance as owner of the A's, and it'll be in Las Vegas. You made it here to the end of the video. You know I appreciate that. Thumbs up down below. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the channel so I can definitely see you back here next time.